we are going to be looking at the top localization automations you should be using. You might notice that on the registration page, we set top 10 localization automations, but it might end up being a little bit more. We'll see. Also depends on how you count it, right? But we will see how that's gonna turn up. It's going to be definitely a lot of automations, a lot of tips. And ideally, we are hoping that you are going to leave this webinar with having a little bit more maybe ideas on automating different steps of your translation project workflows that maybe you are not yet using, but might start or might want to explore. And we believe that on a big scale, automations can end up saving a lot of time and also maybe ensure skipping some unnecessary human errors or whatever. So we are hopefully going to offer you a lot of different phases of the project lifecycle in which you can automate different actions. When I say we are going to present, it's not going to be me. It's going to be our amazing speaker, David McNamee. He is an enterprise solutions engineer. He comes into contact with a lot of our customers and he gives demos regularly. So he's very familiar with the product and with all the different cool things it can do. So over to you, David, to walk us through the different automations.
All right. Well, thank you, Clara. Appreciate that introduction. Let's get right to it. As Clara said, if you have any questions during the session, please get them into the chat or into the Slido, and we'll get those taken care of as quickly as possible. We're going to move a little quickly. There's a lot to cover. We're doing some live exercises here today, so no pre-recorded, pre-canned videos. This is all live demonstrations, so we'll see how things go. Taking my life into my own hands here, but I am really hoping that this is going to be the most boring, interesting demo that you've seen in a while, because automation, when it works, it looks like nothing's happening, right? That's the point. We automate so that we don't have to have human intercession at as many places or any places. Like any other automation initiative that we've talked about in the industry for the last 30, 50 years in IT and technology adoption, we're trying to deal with more quickly, and we're trying to deal with more cost effectively, and we're trying to do it in a way that reduces the number of errors that are introduced into the process as we go along. So you think about the content that you are being asked to translate and to have translated. We need to respond to tighter deadlines, tighter turnaround times. We have to respond to more markets being addressed, more variation amongst audiences. We can talk about hyper personalization and some of these different things. But in that moving faster, it's very easy to introduce more errors, especially if we have manual processes. So we want to watch out for the kind of things that always trip us up, that are simple to correct with the judicious application of some technology. So grammar, we've been able to solve that for a while. Readability, fluency, these are kind of emerging. Tone and voice, really looking at some solutions that can help us out there. And then cost controls, you're being given more constrained budgets. You're being asked to contribute to the bottom line of other departments, other groups, other parts of the organization. So we really want to focus on that. We do have some great resources about return on investment and sort of calculating the value of localization investment that are on phrase.com, so we can make sure those resources are available to us, available to you all after the event is over. But I do want to point out that as we go into the automations, it's really important to take a breath and realize that not all content is created equal. When we look at automation scenarios, we're going to go from a very low automation sort of situation where you have high risk content that you're trying to really impact people's decision making. You're trying to get to their heart or their wallet, one of the two. And you have a very, very low risk tolerance for mistakes in the translation or for quality issues to be introduced. Then on the other extreme, you have content that, well, you just really need to have it done. So if you can avoid having any manual intercession, that would be fantastic. So we talk about these hyper automation scenarios where every possible thing that could be automated is automated. And we're going to gravitate more towards that hyper automation discussion today with some of the examples, just to see what can be automated in the phrase platform and what that could look like. So when we get into the demonstration, we're definitely going to be talking about ways that you can do things. We're not going to suggest that this is the way you have to do it. Price platform is very, very flexible. So if you need things to be manual, human-driven processes, terrific. We're still going to be able to help automate certain parts of that process. If you want things to be fully automated, we've got plenty of options, and you can mix and match, and your content strategy can then be stratified based off of your risk tolerance, the velocity with which you need those translations to be returned to you. What are your cost issues, and what are you trying to do with the audience for that particular kind of content? So digging in, um, uh, first thing that we're going to want to look at is content automation. And we're going to look at 4 different automation categories, essentially, as we go through the discussions today. Content automation is really that last mile problem that we talk about, and really it's first mile for a lot of people. Getting the actual content that you want to have translated out of whatever source system it resides in and into the hands of the translators. And that's where the phrase translation management system can come in and provide that pipeline to the people who are going to be translating, editing, reviewing, approving content. But where does it live? How does it get out of there? A lot of organizations are still emailing content around. They're manually extracting content from their source system, whether it's a box.com website or an Adobe Experience Manager platform. They're manually extracting that text. They're putting it into a file format that they've agreed upon with their translators, and they're emailing it out, or they're using an FTP site, something along those lines. What we want to be able to do, though, is let your content creators, your content authors, work in the environment in which they're comfortable, not ask them to do anything extra in order to get translations. We don't want them to have to ask another person, an administrator or a project manager, to go in and do extra work either to be able to get translations going. So really having a direct integration into that content source is really handy. A great example of what we're thinking about, we can talk about what we do with Contentful. I'm going to bring in my screen here. Let me actually cut my video here so that we have lots and lots of bandwidth to give you. Good night, Google. Thank you so much. So here's Contentful. We're not going to do anything terribly fancy with Contentful. I want to focus on the actual content part. But I have a couple of different content models. Other systems will call these content types. That's fine. I'm just going to put a little bit of content into Contentful so that we have something with which to work. And I'm going to put in two articles here. We'll just start with some text that I stole from a trusted resource, and put it in here. If you've never seen Contentful before, one of the fun things that they do from a localization perspective is you can see the different localization targets in line with your source. So I can, pull in whatever I want to look at so that we can see the edits as they come in and know that it's done. Lots of great things in there. But from a content perspective, this is all I want my content authors to do is focus on adding their own content. So that's one. I'm going to add another, pick that content type. And I'm picking on this particular content type in particular because I have automations set up to know what to do with that particular kind of content. So let me grab another little bit of copy paste text because nobody really wants to watch me type uh, at this point. That's no fun. Talk about removing errors. And let's just give that the quick title here. So we got some things that are a little generic about coffee. We got some things that are specific to our platform. And great, that's it. That's all I want to do in Contentful. At this point now, I want that automation to kick in. And the way that actually works in the phrase platform is we have a connector in that knows how to talk to Contentful, knows how to talk to a lot of different content sources. Actually, if I flip over to the phrase TMS, and apologize, I meant to have this integrations connectors section opened up before we got started, but you can see I have a number of different content sources configured with my environment. I can tuck in and point it to a specific location within my content management system, so it knows how to talk. So this gives us that line of communication between the two platforms, so I don't have to ask someone to copy and paste things. And using that connection, I can then define something called automated project creation, or the APC. And the automated project creation is giving the platform some rules, using that connector to go out and monitor and wait for changes. So I want to come back to this creation and export section here in just a second, but my point is about this monitoring. I'm using that connector definition of how do I connect to my Contentful environment. I'm looking at specific folders, locations inside of Contentful. I can use patterns. I can watch specific files. I can set up multiple monitors as well. So in my case, I'm just looking at a folder called phrase marketing that actually equates to the content type that I was using. But you can see I have some other ones that are in here that I could monitor and add to the definition as well. And my monitor recurrence, I'm being silly with this right now because we're doing demonstrations, but we can have that kick off every few minutes, every 5 minutes. We can have schedule-based so that we can have it run at a set time. So if your localization pattern is, hey, we do things once a week, we do things once a day, fine. We can also get really interesting and do things based off of webhooks. So we can connect to your system and have your system connect to ours and have it be very event driven. Fantastic. We can execute that. But then there's also a set of rules here that we're following in project creation, and those are defined in a project template. And we're going to talk a bit more in depth about templates in a moment. But to sort of um, kick off the discussion, that project template is going to have, let's see, this is the one I'm using right here, a lot of pre-configured metadata, at least the things that make sense to pre-configure. And we'll have metadata being collected. What are the source and target languages? If there are any rules around machine translation engine, pre-translation, all those things. We're gonna look at some of those details in a minute. But this is really how we're going to be able to look in and see that content is being added into our platform. Now, if I look from here, from all this behind the scenes configuration discussion and look at the actual phrase TMS project list This is what a project manager would see in phrase. Let me pull up the menu, make it a little more clear what's going on here. I'm looking at my full project list. Full disclosure, I am signed in as an administrator. I'm a recovering software engineer. I have to sign into everything as an admin. It's part of my ongoing therapy. But that means I will see a few things that your linguists, maybe some project managers wouldn't see as far as configuration and integration setup. But if I refresh the screen, because we've been sitting here for a minute, I do see that, oh, hey, there's a new project that was created. That's my contentful, called it Hyperautomation Project 10. That's following the rules that I had set up in my automated project creation definition. It's using the template that I was mentioning a moment ago. If I click into the project, I will see there's the metadata configuration. There's some extra things that I've tucked in. I see my workflow steps. These workflow steps are defined in the project template. We'll take a look at that in a moment. And you can see that I have jobs that correspond to the different steps in the workflow. And I can, move around here, go back to the pre-translate phase, revision, quality assessment, etc. And see what's really happening here. So I now have, just to prove it, I'm going to open up one of these jobs. This is the one about coffee. This is going to be the English into Spanish. We're going to talk a bit about some of the things that have happened over here, but just want to prove that, yeah, the text got over, the content was transferred over into Phrase TMS, and I didn't have to lift a finger once my automations were defined. So my content authors, my localization project managers, they don't have to mess around with files anymore in order to get a project started and for project execution to get going. I'm going to pause for just a second. I do see some questions starting to pop into the queue. If I can't get to all of them right now, I'll come back to them toward the end. Okay, decimal separators, we'll talk about that in a minute. Better grasp of low versus high risk content. Stefano, I may say that to the end, but your risk profile is really about your tolerance for mistakes happening in the translation. Because hyperautomation, as we'll see, when we get into the translation of or sorry, the actual there we go. Project management automation, which we're talking about now. When we get through into the translation automation, we'll see that we do depend quite a bit on machine translation and AI. So what is your risk tolerance there? Okay. Great side conversation and might be a good topic for a future webcast, because that's more of a consultative issue. That content automation leads us into project management automation, like we just saw, where projects are being automatically created for us, jobs are being created for us automatically. You could see that staff and vendors were actually being assigned. So in my jobs list here, I see names next to some of these. These are the people who have been assigned to work on this task. So based off of rules that we've already set up, Richard here has some work to do. This is an internal staff member. Synonym roles, LSP, that's a vendor. So I can assign things to external parties as well through automation. And forgive my vendor names. I think I'm funny, and these things will come through in the demo. But we can get that level of automation in there too. So having that that level of, oh gosh, I got this piece of content, now I have to give it to somebody, that can be automated too. At a project level, that is great. That alleviates a number of common tasks that localization project managers have to worry about, and they can definitely free up some time. When you start looking more broadly across the portfolio of projects, so not just what's happening to one project, but what's happening to all of your projects, we want to be able to give project managers ways to respond to those things that happen occasionally, but not all the time, not on every project. So things that don't necessarily make sense to include in a standard project template. And what I mean by that is if I look at the template that defined this project and said that we have a pre-translate workflow stage and a revision stage and a quality assessment stage. We'll go back to this. I teased it a minute ago. If I scroll down, there is a workflow section to this, and you can see that I can decide which steps are going to be included in my project as a part of this template. And you can have as many as 15 different stages in this workflow. And I apologize, I just realized I'm using the word step and stage interchangeably. They're the same thing. Workflow stage, workflow step. Some people prefer different terminology, but these are the steps that you'll have in your workflow. You can define your own steps. When you first look at the phrase platform in a brand new instance, there's maybe 3 workflow steps that are defined. Very easy to add your own, put them in the right order, make sure they happen the way that you want them to execute. And if I scroll down a little bit, we'll see pre-translate, revision, quality assessment. Those are my 3 workflow stages. Revision is one that has actual task assignments. So based off of the languages that I accept for this project, and yeah, you can absolutely limit the languages that you accept. I'm predefining lists of staff, people, vendors, that are going to be able to work on these things. If I have more than one person that's qualified, I can add them to the list. If I've got multiple vendors that are qualified, I can add them as a list, so we can get into getting those task assignments out there. Now, at a project level, this workflow is what I like to call the happy path workflow. It's the things that are going to happen every time. There may be some exceptions and some automations to skip a step if certain conditions are true, but usually it's the things that happen every time. You're going to pre-translate your content. We'll talk about what that means in a minute. We're going to do some other step. We're going to do step 3. We're going to do step 4. That's on every single project that we do here. The things that happen occasionally or periodically might be responding to a system event. And there was a status change that's important that you need to respond to. Those are the kind of things that project managers typically have to go into the system and look for status changes. They need to run a report. They need to get an email. They need to get a Slack message. We're looking at opportunities to automate that as well. So we have a tool called Phrase Orchestrator. Phrase Orchestrator is a no-code, low-code workflow design surface. Okay, and this is going to be able to respond to different events inside of the platform. So if I want to come in and just look at a definition of one of the workflows that's happening, oh, it's that time of the year we get some new messages. Cool. One of the ones that's executing in here is on the TMS project created, adding a task to Asana. All right, cool. So we've got some events that we're responding to. So new TMS project created. There's a whole list of different triggers that we could possibly respond to. So when a job gets assigned, exported, job created, job updated, status changes, we can go in and we can add these different tasks to the design surface. It's a drag and drop design surface. And then we can go in and configure our steps. So this let me do some work such that when I created this new project inside of the TMS, and this is the project I'm talking about, and we have these different jobs that are here just because we added some new content to the contentful environment. Orchestrator picked up that event and responded to that event. And if I look over here in Asana, and Clara, tell me if you can't see my Asana screen. It automatically created a project or sorry, a task in a project and the sub tasks as well. Thank you, Clara. So I've got these subtasks here as well. So we can do this kind of automation. Not only are we responding to a system event, but we're doing some logic, we're doing some processing in the platform, and we're calling out and integrating with an external platform. Now, this is very much a contrived scenario. Asana is a great tool. Not everybody uses it. You can, look at anything that has webhooks or an API to be able to connect to. But think about your processes for localization today. Are you using other tools to get the job done? And if you are, well, that's a great opportunity for us to be able to tie them together and do some additional work here. Let me come back over here and pull this aside. One of the things that we're also going to look at after getting that initial project management automation going. So we've created the project, we've created jobs that go with the project, we've assigned that work to specific people. We do have some automation opportunities specifically around doing the translation work. So this is a critical first step. This is something that most organizations are taking advantage of in some way, shape, or form. So first and foremost, old school is still around: translation memory, turn-based enforcement. How do we assign, allocate translation memory? What are the rules for processing it? And then once we've done with that, how do we think about evaluating that translation quality, whatever's left over? Maybe we use machine translation and AI tools to help us complete the translation. So let's take a look at that here for just a couple of minutes. If I go back to phrase and I look at my my platform here, I'm on my revision step, so I'm kind of in the middle here. Let me take a look at this last task here, this last job. This is going to be a bit about phrase that don't settle for generic quality. You can see that it is what we call confirmed. We got 56% confirmed. What does that mean? Well, that means we're more than halfway done with potential translations. I'm going to go ahead and open up the translation editor, our CAT tool. And of course, again, I am signed in as an admin, so I am able to open up other people's tasks and come in and take a look. So let's take a moment and see what's happening here. As you'd expect, if you've been in localization for more than a couple minutes, sort of a common layout where we have the source content on one side, we have the candidate translations on the other. But I haven't done any translation work myself yet, so I haven't gone in and done anything. This is all automated translation work at this point. Now you can see that for a number of these, I have 100s and 101s, and these are my translation memory matches. Pretty familiar, comfortable topic for most folks. I want to be able to click into this segment. This will take me to the visual preview to see where it is in the document, and I will be able to see where this came from in translation memory. So that's going to be very, very helpful for us. Anything else? Where did it come from? I've got a 99 match, so I've got some TM matching in here. Terrific. This is showing me source comparisons, showing me where there's differences between this and the translation memory. So we can decide if we want to use this, if I'm coming in as a post editor, if I want to make any changes. I have rules in my translation memory in my project template that says if we have a 100% or 101% match, go ahead and pre-confirm it. I don't need to touch this. I can also choose to lock a segment. So when I get to this point as a translator, I would just want to work on the stuff that's not locked and not confirmed, and I can clear that out and sort of clear the board and reduce the number of things that I have to look at. So translation memory, everyone loves it. Great. We get consistency. We get to reuse things that we've already paid for. Fantastic. I'm just going to go ahead and cheat a little bit and mark this job as complete so that it moves on to the next step. Let me close that out. Let me look at the other item here where we have the coffee article. Because this will have translation memory results, but we'll also have, we've got a line here that we don't have a translation memory match for. So it's gone out to machine translation and asked for a candidate translation, brought it back, and it has given me a score, a QPS score of 82, which isn't bad. We can have a deeper discussion about QPS scores and how they're calculated. But the basic idea is whenever we get a result from machine translation, we want to immediately evaluate it and give you an idea of whether this was a useful translation or not. Is there a problem or not? And that's what the QPS score does. If you're familiar with LQA and that whole process of flagging issues and scoring them and annotating them, that's really what's happening here in the background at a segment level. We get the result back from machine translation. We look at the source, we look at the translation that was offered and do that quick evaluation using an LLM in the background and come up with that score. So it's really the question of how would this score if a human got involved and did that evaluation. So we want to be able to give you an opportunity to have that come through. And if the score is high enough, you can make a decision what your threshold is to automatically accept that. So just like with translation memory, if you have a scoring threshold, you could pre-confirm and even lock a segment that comes back from machine translation. Now, one of the things with machine translation selection, you look down here over here on the right-hand side in the panel that tells us where the translation came from, and it says it came from Phrase Language AI and something called NextMT. One of the big problems that customers have come to us with is the fact that there are so many machine translation engines on the market, traditional machine translation engines, the new things that are coming out that are LLM based, and we want to take that burden off of people of having to have staff dedicated to keeping up with the latest in how things are working in the MT and AI world. So enter Phrase Language AI, and I have different profiles defined that include different machine translation engines. And this is what I'm invoking in my project when I ask for a machine translation, rather than tying specifically to Amazon or specifically to Microsoft or specifically to Google. I'm asking Phrase, hey, look at the content, do an evaluation, and tell me which engine of the ones that are in my profile are going to give me good results. Okay. That's what's happening here. It's an auto select of the machine translation engine. Now, deeper discussion around, hey, I use this machine translation engine and I love it and I always want to use that. Can I still do that? Yeah, absolutely. Have you done customization with it? Great, absolutely. If you need language coverage, breadth, if you don't have investments in training, if you have a need for improving the quality that you're getting back from machine translation, we can help and get you that benefit of all of these engines and more. So if we need to add additional engines, we support multiple inside of this cohort. And this comes as part of your Phrase platform environment. There's nothing else you need to do. You don't need to sign additional contracts. go, have separate agreements with these organizations. It's all part of the Phrase platform. Very quickly, I want to point out that from a security and privacy perspective, these machine translation engines that we are using are not the publicly available engines. These are engines that we have business agreements with. So your content is not going to be exposed to the public. It's not going to be used for training ours or anybody else's engines. So we've got the agreements in place for privacy management, for security management. That's why they're part of this done the results, the research. These are the ones that we've selected to give us the highest quality, security, and performance out there. And you can just easily reach out and ask for results from any of them. So let's go ahead and just say we'll say completed here to move the things forward. I'm also going to let me refresh the screen here. I want to move things forward a little bit here and just say also on this one where we're targeting an English adaptation. Okay, this is a fun one if you have to deal with adapting from one we'll say flavor of a language. So I'm going from ENUS to ENGB. This is always kind of a weird one, right? So I'm using machine translation to kind of push me through, but I also want to have a lot of automation here. I'm just going to accept what's here and complete it for the sake of discussion, because I really want to talk about something fun and cool on the next step here. So I've completed a couple of steps. I'm going to move to the next phase of the workflow, the quality assessment, and talk about what's happening here. So we have these that have been assigned, and I've been working on these two documents here. Let me make a quick point about what we're about to look at. So we saw in translation automation, we can go out and use a combination of machine translation and AI to get us results back, to do an evaluation of that. And then based off of that, we can, lock segments, minimize the amount of things that have to be done in a post-editing scenario. And then from there, we want to look at how can we potentially do some assurance work on quality. So where are the automation opportunities there with quality? I mentioned LQA a moment ago, and again, if you're not familiar with LQA, it's a great thing. It's a best practice. Our acronym, we talk about language quality assessment. Other tools, vendors, standards, we'll talk about linguistic quality assessment. It's all the same thing. LQA comes back to this idea of a matrix of criterion and categories that our evaluators will come in, take a look at, and say, oh yeah, hey, did we have any potential issues with a particular piece of content, and it will go through and it will automatically do that for us. So rather than having a human sit down and go through the document, we'll be able to get a pass-fail grade on this document using an LQA matrix very quickly using AI instead of having to have someone go through and touch everything. I'm going to go back to my revision phase because I think maybe I'll get some errors with this other Spanish target here. And just to quickly move it through the workflow and try to kick that off, we'll go ahead and say that's completed without doing any role work. We'll just accept the changes that were there. And oh no, that passed as well. But you see how immediate we got that LQA result. So the errors would have come back had there been any, and they would be annotated in the CAT tool itself. So moving into the next phase, as an evaluator, as a reviewer, I would be able to see this LQA information, and it would be in the CAT pane. And I guess I accidentally fixed an error this morning because I had one planted in here. But if it was there, it would show up as a flag here and would be described. We've got a series of webcasts recorded out there around LQA and having that show up. But another place where we can introduce automation to try and drive quality higher without having to spend the time on having humans do the work. So auto LQA, really interesting tool. The other interesting tool that we're looking at here is something called auto adapt. So you notice that my English GB, my UK English is completed, and that's because the workflow that I have associated with this step is actually doing some work specifically on British English. We're using something called auto adapt. Now, let me just kind of tease the workflow here. So phrase orchestrator actually is looking for my stage to be finished. Am I completed? And are we working on Great British English, UK English? And you can see that if we are, I'm going to run auto LQA or auto LQA. Sorry, if it's not GB, we're going to run auto LQA, and that's why we got those results a moment ago. The auto adapt, what that's doing is running the entire document through an LLM and allowing me to include my own custom instructions. So once I've got a candidate translation, this can do document touch up. So maybe I want to have some specific things about my tone. Maybe I want to have specific things about grammar, terminology utilization, some of these different things. We're getting the best of both worlds. So I'm going through a very traditional process up to this point of machine translation and post editing and getting that reviewed. But now at this point, I've actually gone through and said, hey, let me get that result run through some AI so that we can see some adjustments. So let me see if we see anything outstanding here in the cat editor. All right. So in my LLM instructions, I just said, hey, don't use the formal tone as much as possible, and make sure it's appropriate for the United Kingdom. You can see that it did make some changes here. It got rid of my contractions. We're not going to go through every line, but just want to show that yes, it did make some changes, and I can look at the history of edits on the translation and say that yeah, it's this last step that we're on where it did make that change. So the AI did make a decision and edited my document and pushed that through. And at this point, because the workflow automatically closed out and completed my translation, if I go back to Contentful, you can see that, yep, the English UK has been populated. Do not settle for generic quality. Sorry, don't mean to offend anyone. Um, and that's it. So we've gone from beginning to end on a translation localization process without having to email anybody, send FTPs out, decide who's going to do the work, decide which translation engine I'm going to use to give me the better results. I was able to see quality information about the tasks that came back to me. I was able to make some edits automatically using an LLM based off some instructions that I configured, and that took what 35, 40 minutes because I'm talking a lot. I didn't have to touch this. If we had had an error, if we'd had an exception, if we had segments that didn't have good quality scores, if we had a failure in the LQA assessment, those are all events that we can respond to and either automatically try to correct them or automatically assign them to someone to fix the error, remediate the issue, or I can just simply alert my localization project manager and allow them to come in and do some remediation. So we've seen 10 different automations at this point, and that is a really, I think, comprehensive look at what we can do with some of these automations. So before we get into QA, I do have one bonus that didn't really quite fit into the flow of what I wanted to walk through today, but that is the auto curation and custom training that we can do because we are a TMS platform, because we have access to the resources that you're using for linguistic evaluation assets, for your translation memory. Let me pop over here into Phrase and go to Custom AI. And two tasks that are extraordinarily time consuming, but are really important to having high quality translations, especially in automation scenarios, are cleaning your translation memories and collecting data sets to be able to create a custom instance of a machine translation engine. So these are things that we can do using AI in our platform. So if I choose to first just I want to clean a translation memory and create a new data set, a new translation memory that will be my gold copy going forward. Let's see, new gold copy. And let's spit out one just for the sake of you not having to watch me type a whole bunch. We'll just keep it Spanish. My source locale, genericize it a little bit. My targets, let's include so-called generic, but I know I've also got results in here for Mexico and España. I can add more locale pairs into this data set. Let me just grab some translation memories. I've got multiple translation memories inside of my platform. You can use multiple translation memories on a project. I don't think we talked about that during some of the automation, but we can have those rules. So let's just take an approved one and some fun EU stuff and our marketing material. And I want to create a new TM off of that that's been cleaned up. And that cleaning is actually going to be driven by parameters that I choose. So what do I have a specific date range? Have we had a major event in the company where we've had to redo a bunch of content, and anything older than 2017 is just absolute useless? Okay, we can set those date ranges. Character counts, pair lengths, length ratios, spit out non-translatables, spit out duplicates, spit out near duplicates, enforce language IDs. Take the bottom 10%, the worst performing segments, and just get rid of them. That's kind of fun, right? So we'll actually go in and run QPS over all of the segments that are in the translation memories, and yeah, get rid of that bottom 10%. Okay, so now I can create, and it's going to walk. I can walk away now. It's doing that cleaning work. Now we've only got about 8 minutes left in our time together today, so it's going to take longer than 8 minutes for that cleaning job to run. But the point is, I can walk away now. I don't have to spend whatever time it will take, an hour, 2 hours, 8 hours, to tidy that up. I can look at a pre-existing one that's already been cleaned and see the results. And we should see, let's see. Oh, it's been about 6 months since I created this. You can see here the statistics originally had more than 50,000 segments. it kept almost 17,000. So it removed 60% of low value content from my translation memories. Why? Well, because 40% of it was duplicates. And then we had alignment and non-translatables and some other things here. Great. Don't have to do that hard work myself. Once I have this data set and it's cleaned, I can then download it and save it as a new translation memory, or I can use it to train an MT model, and I can have that be added to my cohort of engines that I use inside of Phrase Language AI. Okay, so I've got a few here. You see I have this custom model ID. Um, these have been deployed here. I can see where they've been deployed. Um, let's see. Just get an overview of the MT engine. Once the MT training is done, you will actually be able to see comparisons from the origin to the newly trained instance. So we have a number of statistical models that we use for evaluation. You will see if there has indeed been an improvement. Sometimes people are surprised when they do custom training, they don't see the huge leap that they think they're going to. But if you got good data, you get enough of it, you will see improvement, and that will help us out. So let's take a moment here. Let's move that off the screen. Let's take a look now at the next item just mentioned. Uh, this level of automation that we can do just through some configuration work inside the platform isn't enough for you. Reminder that our API is extensive and it's publicly available. Anyone with a Phrase subscription can use the Phrase API, so there's no issues, limitations there, or there are developer plans, but those are sort of for system integrators to go after. So that's it. We've talked about a lot of automation topics in a short amount of time. I want to take a moment and run through the questions that are out there, see if we can't get a few of those answered before we part today. So if you were holding on to a question, now is your time to get it in, and I'll just go ahead and go through the Slido as we talk. All right. Clara, while I'm getting that pulled over, any announcements, anything we want to mention?
Um, yeah, no, thank you, David. I think this was great. Hope you're also happy with how it went. Looks like there were no freezes or anything in the product, so that's great that the live demo didn't kind of catch you
Yeah.
from that end. Maybe what I would suggest is that I would take the screen sharing from you now, just to kind of
Yeah, go ahead.
offer the nice little setup for the questions. And we can take it from maybe the one that I can
Oh,
address.
you've got it pretty nice. Go
Yeah,
for
the admin
it.
view, right? So I will just start with this one, a question about the recording, if it's going to be shared later. Someone joined us in the middle of the night, so I hope they went to sleep, because yes, we are
Yes.
going to be sharing the recording next week, and we will also share like a little rundown of the key highlights. So yeah, this will be shared. Okay, do you want to take it from the top, David?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to get my screen back here.
Okay, I think
Get it
you've
across here. There we go.
already mentioned a little bit about the low versus high risk content. It kind of depends on
Yeah,
the
I want
level.
to follow up. Yeah, it's all about risk profile. So what's your tolerance for errors, mistakes being introduced into the topic? Because anytime you're using machine translation or AI, there is a risk of a mistake happening. We're not at a point yet where we can promise that everything is error free. So it's about that risk control and risk assessment. If you're doing things that are health and public safety, and people can go to jail if it's wrong, let's be careful. Let's make sure there's human review, human in the loop, right? But if there's content that, okay, it's okay if it's a little bit off because it's maybe little community generated content or AI generated content, or some of the support material. There's a little bit higher tolerance for that. You can move ahead. Um, Next on the list, automating the decimal separators. That's a locale specific instruction. So making sure that your locales are defined correctly is going to give us that opportunity to enforce the conversion between the decimal separators as well as a number of other things. I don't know your content, but usually you can catch most of those. There may be some things that you're using that, just CLDR has to be called out and referenced, and you may have some human work in there. But for the most part, those sorts of things can be dealt with. Uh, Contentful, can you show how it works with AEM? Not in 30 seconds. We do have some great webcasts that go through our integration with AEM, and we're happily partnered with Adobe to provide a great experience with AEM. So I'll refer you to our webcasts page. Nice that you use Asana, but that's fine. Rike is a great tool. I don't know enough about Rike. I've never tried to dig into their REST APIs or even verify that they have any. But as long as they do, or accept webhooks, then absolutely you can integrate with anything that has that exposure. Not sure if the partner content will cover this, but uploading files, jobs in bulk and multi-language can be cumbersome. Any tips on that would be great. Well, I hope that you saw that I did a multilingual upload and didn't have to touch anything. So in my case, I was just doing UK English and Spanish targets. Didn't have to touch anything. So if there are further questions, please reach out and contact us. We'll help you. So phrase strings is not the right product for Contentful. I never said that. I never said that. Phrase strings versus phrase TMS is a little bit longer conversation, but to be very rude about the differences between the two, phrase strings is very much geared towards software localization projects. So it's really a developer tool when you dig down into its beating heart. Phrase TMS was born in the long form content world. So content management that is not pixel perfect and everything is driven by a key. So if everything in your world is driven by key value pairs, phrase strings is probably going to be a great tool for you. But if it's, unstructured long form content, phrase TMS has advantages when we get there. If you really want to dig into the differences, let us know. We can have someone reach out and help you with that. Is auto-adapt a subset of language AI or custom AI? Sorry. Great question, Alexis. Auto-adapt is, I believe, going to stand as its own item, but it may be under the custom AI umbrella. I will have to get back to you after I get slapped around by the product owner who I know is waiting for me when this call will end. So it will be part of the platform. Just whether it's in one screen or another, I don't know the answer to that because I've been using it totally through Orchestrator at this point. Sorry, I can't be clear on that, but you will have access to it regardless of where it lands. Automation and LQ. Oh, I just noticed we're over time. Thank you for everyone sticking around. I'll go ahead and run through the questions real quick for the recording, so you can catch those on the backside. Those of you who have to go right now, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. About the automation in LQA, once an organization set up its resources, this step can be done by anyone without specific knowledge of the target languages. So LQA absolutely requires knowledge of the target language. So language quality assessment or linguistic quality assessment is the process of identifying errors in the translation, annotating them, scoring them, and if possible, making some commentary about them. So it would be really helpful for the person doing that to have knowledge of the target language. However, in an automation scenario, if we are going to depend on auto LQA, then yeah, absolutely. Once it's set up, it can just go. And if you are in a position to automate based off the results of auto LQA and sort of trust what comes out of auto LQA, wow, that's hard to say this close to Friday. If you're able to trust with the results of auto LQA, then absolutely you don't have to have a language specialist babysitting that process. That's why it's important to go back to that conversation about risk profile and understand the content that you are sending through automation and whether or not you can simply accept what's coming back in return. Okay? If you can, great, go for it. Is auto adapt only available when using Orchestrator? Today, yes. It is an action on Orchestrator. We are looking at where that will be released. Again, this is where I will get beat up by Rachel and the product team for not knowing this in detail. But once it is available in Orchestrator or elsewhere, it will be a part of the platform, so there won't be restrictions on being able to access to it. How do you add translation memory and term-based to next-gen MT models? Fantastic question. The models will, I will have to, just based on time and me not being able to articulate that in one sentence, I'm going to refer you to the next-gen MT documentation on how to set that up, because I don't want to steer you wrong on that. But we do want to identify the ones that are driving that that processing clearly. Sorry for not having the right answer on that, but the docs will have a walkthrough on how to do that. And I think there was a recent webcast on the introduction of Next-Gen MT that talked through that. So,
Thank
all
you
right.
very much, David. We are at the end of the question. See you next time. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.